Hernando County Sheriff Al Nienhuis here with Just the Facts, DOGE edition. Now, joining me today are a couple people from the Hernando County Sheriff's Office finance team, Francis Pioszak, who is our finance director, as well as Terri Staff, who is our chief administrative officer. And we're going to talk a little bit about DOGE as it relates to the Hernando County Sheriff's Office. And you may or may not know, but there's actually two DOGE initiatives going on right now, one from the state as well as one locally. And both of those entities are, I think, doing a pretty good job on what they're asking for, and particularly the local DOGE committee, or delegation rather, has sent us an email back in June that I think really laid the groundwork to show that their intentions are really pure. This is not political, and they really want to get to the bottom about how efficient local government is, and particularly the sheriff's office. And Terri, I know we got an email back in June, and there's one part in there that you and I have talked a lot about. Why don't you go ahead and read that? I think it really kind of lays the whole groundwork for the DOGE delegation and what they're looking for.
Sure, Sheriff. This email came back in June when they started, and it's addressed to us, and it says that the DOGE is committed to conducting this important work with minimal disruption to your department's essential services, which we appreciate. Our initial efforts will involve reviewing publicly available information and requesting access to existing data and reports that are already compiled as part of your department's routine management, budgeting, and operational planning. The biggest part that I appreciated was we will not be asking your staff to create new analysis or reports for our initial inquiries.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that government accounting is much, much different than private sector accounting. And before we even get into that, why don't you, Francis, tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll have Terri tell a little bit about yours, because I don't think people realize the depth of quality of people that we have here. And I know you all have a lot of education, a lot of experience. So, Francis, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA for almost 35 years now. Mm-hmm. The last 19 years of my experience has been in governmental accounting. I worked for the clerk's office for almost 17 years, and I've been at the sheriff's office since then. Part of having a CPA is the requirements are to have a high level of ethics and integrity, and that just comes along with being a CPA, and the quality and learning about auditing transactions, not just processing or pushing paperwork around.
Before we move on, you said you work for the clerk's office, and I know a lot of people understand that the clerk supports the judges, but there's another aspect of the clerk's office which is really, really important as it relates to financial matters in the county. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and what the clerk's function is in county government?
When I was at this clerk's office, I was the assistant finance director for almost 16 years. The clerk is a constitutional officer that works within Hernando County, and the role of the clerk's office is to be the chief financial officer for the board. Mm-hmm. So we audited all the transactions of the board, put together the audited financial statements, and the integrity and ethics with which I perform that job, I bring to me here to the sheriff's office.
So much like the sheriff, the clerk of court and comptroller is a totally separate entity from the Board of County Commissioners.
That is correct.
Okay, good. So you have a little bit of experience when it comes to finance.
I do.
Government finance. Okay. All right, Terri, tell us a little bit about your background. I know that you've been in government, but you also, even before that, you were involved in.
Yes, correct. Actually, I started in Citrus County in the accounting office and ended up at the Hernando County Clerk's office, where I met Francis in the very beginning, and she became the assistant finance director at that time. And I moved on to the Office of Management and Budget, and then Spring Hill Fire. And then I've been with the sheriff for 14 years. But I have an accounting degrees. I have associates, bachelor's, and a master's degree, all in accounting. And I'm a certified government finance officer for the state of Florida.
Okay. So I know you and I have worked together for well over a decade now. It's getting close to 15 years. And so there's a lot of experience, and there's a lot going on at the sheriff's office when it comes to financial matters. We are a standalone entity, but obviously being a CPA is important, but at the end of the year, do we just close our books and that's all that happens?
No, we don't. Part of being a constitutional officer is we are required to submit any excess fees. So excess fees are monies that we receive from the board that we've been unable to spend. And the reason we have excess fees, it's not because we don't need the money or because we did a poor job budgeting. We have excess fees because we cannot receive the goods or services by September 30th. And as much as we work with vendors and push really hard at the end of the year to get everything we need, sometimes they don't deliver, so we have to return whatever excess we have.
Well, we'll talk about that in a couple seconds, but what kind of checks and balances occur at the end of the year or after the end of the year?
Actually, we have an external auditor comes and performs an audit of financial transactions and assists us in preparing our audited financial statements.
Okay. Do we get to pick that auditor?
We do not. The
Okay.
auditor is chosen by an audit committee that includes a board of county commissioner and one representative from each of the 5 constitutional officers.
Okay. And now, is this just a little local mom and pop auditing firm?
Actually, it is not. It was MSL, which was then acquired this past year by Forbes Mazars, and MSL was a regional firm, and Forbes Mazars is an international firm.
International firm. So they certainly, I think most people would assume that they've probably seen it all, and they're certainly not going to ignore any improprieties. Because I mean, a county even as big as Hernando, they are going to hold accountable if they find anything wrong, whether it's a sheriff's office or one of the other constitutional officers. They're going to make note of that
That
for their
is-
own protection.
I'm sorry, that is correct. And MSL has many years of governmental experience, is one of the reasons Forbes Mazars acquired them. And every year the sheriff's office has received a clean audit opinion, which means there's no material misstatements, everything's fairly presented. And we have not received any management letter comments in the recent years, which would be suggestions on how we can improve how we're recording financial transactions.
Okay, very good. And if do we have those audits hidden away someplace?
No, we do not. And any citizen can go to the hernandosheriff.org and look at the bottom left-hand side. There are reports, and they have at least 10 years' worth of audited financial statement reports, as well as 10 years' history in the approved budget financial reports. And we also have the current proposed fiscal year 26 budget report. It's all available to anyone who wants to go online.
Okay, so we have what the proposed budgets were or what the approved budgets were, and then the follow-up audit to show that everything was done. Now, I know occasionally individuals, and I think we talked about this, first of all, if a sheriff's office anywhere in Florida for that matter, but particularly here in Hernando, which obviously is going to concern me, if a sheriff's office goes over budget, who is responsible for that money that they've gone over? Who's going to be held accountable for that?
That is a great question. That's actually addressed by the Florida Attorney General. There is Attorney General opinion. It says the sheriff himself is responsible for any violation going over his budget. So the sheriff himself would be responsible.
So that's why you all know that I'm very concerned with how much money we have left over. And I know that, Terri, especially the beginning of the year, it's a little bit hard because things are kind of new. And obviously, we're just getting into budget. But about halfway through the budget year, what do we start doing usually at least monthly?
Actually, Sheriff, we start in December and January, so it's
Right.
only into the first quarter that we start looking at financial projections to try to find out how are we doing and are we going to be okay when it gets to September 30th year end.
Right. So, we want to make sure we don't go over. Now, there are some critics that will say, Sheriff, why did you give back a large amount of money? And I'd ask our audience maybe to put in the comments. Of course, we love it when people put comments in. It certainly helps the algorithm. And before I forget, make sure you hit like on this video and share this video. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the like button there as well. We certainly want to get this information out because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about the sheriff and the sheriff's budget. But I want our audience to think for a moment, if you were sheriff and you were held personally liable if you went over budget, how much would you keep aside as kind of a cushion? And of course, we get right into hurricane season at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year, which our fiscal year ends September 30th. We've already mentioned that. We don't get to roll our general fund money over, it goes back to the county if we're over budget, or if we're under budget rather, but how much of that money would you keep aside percentage-wise, just to be safe if you were sheriff? And I think people will find it difficult to believe that even if we give back, a few $100,000, how much that really is either in percentage-wise or in the number of days of budget. So, let's say, what typically do we give back, and how much cushion is really there, I guess is a good question.
In the past few years, we've given back a little over 200,000. Sometimes there might be an additional component for capital. Again, as I mentioned before, if we're not able to receive the capital timely, but historically just excess fees from operations, it's about 2 days or less than 2 days worth of operations.
So we're 2 days from going over budget if we have a bad end of the year.
Correct.
If we have a hurricane or a natural or man-made disaster, right? So I think a lot of people don't understand that. They hear a couple $100,000, and to us as individuals, $200,000 is a lot of money. But when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar operation like the sheriff's office, $200,000 is really a very small amount. But that being said, let's talk about the sheriff's budget just a little bit. And I think a lot of people don't realize what percentage of our budget, Terri, maybe you can answer this, what percentage of our budget is related to personnel, salaries and FICA taxes and health insurance, things like that?
Yes, actually, our personnel budget has consistently been at 86% of the budget for just personnel alone. And unfortunately, a lot of that ends up being mandates, because we have the FRS, which is our retirement. We have health insurance that a lot of times we can't control. And the FICA taxes are based on salaries that's calculated. And then we also try to keep up and have competitive wages, and that's changing a lot. And our governor, as you know, is very supportive of law enforcement, so he has, been able to give the state wages, a raise. So we have to try to keep up with the FHP and just our surrounding counties to make sure we get the best talent possible for Hernando County.
Right, and you know what I think a lot of people don't realize is that. And I'm not 100% sure this number, we'll have to double check it, but I think if we look back about 10 years and look at minimum wage alone over the last 10 years, I think it's gone up about 60%, give or take. And then, of course, there's growth in the county. And when those two things combine, just to maintain the level of service, you're talking about a fairly large increase in the budget just to stay even. And, it really doesn't matter whether you're operating a restaurant or whether you're operating a sheriff's office. Those service type businesses, your salary dollars are what's really expensive and what drives your budget. And that 14 cents out of every dollar that is left over for things like, cars and guns and computers and batteries and pencils and gasoline and contracts to fix radios and contracts to fix copiers and all those other things that go into the sheriff's office. I think a lot of people think that it's probably just the opposite, that 86% of our budget is more discretionary funds. What about the people? And, Terri, I know you're in charge of not just fiscal, but human resources as well. Command staff, I know sometimes government gets accused of having a larger command staff. How does our command staff on the law enforcement side compare to what it was maybe in 1995, let's say?
If you look all the way back to 1995, Sheriff, we are at about even, if not maybe one less.
One less.
Yes, than we had at the time.
Of course, since that time, we added the jail. And I know sometimes critics will say the budget goes up, but they don't take into account that maybe the things we're responsible for have gotten bigger, like, taking on animal enforcement and later on taking on animal shelter and so forth. And, of course, that's going to increase the budget as well. There was a critic who pointed out something I thought was kind of interesting, and it shows, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with budgeting because I know this isn't real exciting for a lot of people out there, but I think it is important that sometimes critics just look at the big picture and don't realize that there's a lot more going on in a budget. This particular critic brought up that the county budget had increased at a faster pace or larger than the sheriff's office budget. We certainly appreciate that because I know that Florida Tax Watch says that if I remember correctly, we were about middle of the road with our county, how much taxes we collect for the county, whole county government, and but we're like 56th when it comes to first responder funding, and we're not complaining about that, but it certainly shows that we have to be efficient because you couldn't be 56th in funding and not be efficient, and that's per capita. But, when you look at the county budget being bigger than, or moving at a faster rate than the sheriff's office budget, you really have to dig deeper, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that, let's say you have a project and, to defend the county a little bit, the county side of the budget, if you're going to widen a road and it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars and you can't get it all paid for in one single year, you have to take that money and roll it over to the next year. And in governmental accounting, that looks as though your budget's getting bigger and it looks like you're getting additional revenue when really all you're doing is rolling money over. So what that really means, and I know we talk about this a lot, is it really means you have to have a conversation about budgets. You can't just ask for, you can look at our budgets online, you can look at it at the audit, but you can't make a whole lot of assumptions without having a conversation. And that's why, in the budget letter, and we are constantly telling citizens and county commissioners, come in and talk to us. And we put an invite in the budget letter for them to come in and talk to us. We also send them a specific email to ask them to come in and talk to us. And I will tell you, the majority of our 5 county commissioners do come in and sit down and talk with us. And I think the most important thing that I get out of that is when they leave, they don't have any questions and they don't have any misconceptions. And I think that's very, very important. And I know, Terri, you and I have spent a lot of time talking with them. Francis, you've been involved in a few of those meetings now since you've come on with the sheriff's office. And, I think that's a critical component because it is just too easy to look at those things or ask for a report that is just not something we typically do. And we don't want to try to guess at what somebody wants or give them information that could be easily misconstrued. So, that's very important. So we always tell people, whether it's a county commissioner or a citizen, if they really have a question about our budget, make an appointment, come in here to the office, because this is where all our resources are, where we can sit down. And if somebody has a particular question and we don't have it right at our fingertips that moment, we can go get that information quickly and be very efficient, because we're all about DOGE. We were DOGE long before it was cool. And we can get that information to the people. That being said, is there anything else? I know we talked about a lot before the podcast that we wanted to go over. Is there anything you all can think of?
Anything? I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the way that DOGE is doing this, because our records department, I don't know that people even realize, we receive anywhere from 50 to 100 public records requests on a daily basis.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we answer those requests, but they're very busy, so I appreciated the fact that they weren't, with the way that they were handling it the local way.
Right. And we can't produce a record that we don't have.
Correct.
The law is pretty clear on that. And of course, as I said, we aren't going to try to guess at what somebody's wants if they don't articulate real well what they're looking for. And again, that's why we encourage people, if you have a question, make an appointment, come in and we'll talk. We'll try and figure out exactly what they're looking for and get them that information. The Nature Coast, the counties surrounding us are well known for their efficiency, and I think we're proud of that. And we're well known for our low crime, and that it's certainly a team effort. And we certainly appreciate you taking a little bit of time, both of you. I know you're both very busy, taking a little bit of time to maybe give our listeners a little bit better idea about what's actually going on and how much work it is and how important it is for those people that have these certifications to make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted, because we certainly don't want to have any appearance of impropriety, much less anything actual. So thank you all for what you do. I know the public appreciates it, even if they don't think about it every single day. And I know as sheriff, I certainly appreciate the hard work you all do. As always, we appreciate your support of law enforcement. Remember, like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and we should have some more videos coming out about some cold cases and some pretty interesting stories from one of our K-9 units, and those should be coming out in the next couple of days. As always, thank you for your support.